So this is, okay, live streaming on YouTube.
Yes.
Because I was 13,000.
I think I am having technical problems. I'm going to get out and come back in.
Okay.
It's not good. I mean, like, we're not like that. Oh, these are the locations that you were talking about, like, you want to get that.
Try to give everybody 3 to 5 more minutes.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good
Okay.
morning, everyone.
I think I have solved that problem.
Hi, good morning. Dr. Nagatu, do you want to wait another minute or so, or? I know you're keeping the roll for us.
We can go ahead and move forward with calling the roll. All right.
Okay, good morning. We'll go ahead and officially begin this really important conversation. My name is Adrian Wilson. I serve as the Deputy Chief of Staff for Governor John Bel Edwards, and I share greetings on his behalf. And let me just tell you, really excited for this to be the inaugural meeting of the Council on the Children of Incarcerated Parents and Caregivers. There are two people that I need to recognize at the top of this conversation that are really the reason why we're here today. The first is Representative Denise Marcel. She was the lead author of House Bill 729, which is now enrolled as Act number 284. And the second person that we need to celebrate, and it's the reason why we're here today, is Miss Dominique Jones-Johnson, the founder and executive director of Daughters Beyond Incarceration. So Miss Jones-Johnson, thank you for your vision and your leadership in making sure that we do not forget this population. In fact, that we honor and do everything we can to ensure that they live out their fullest potential. So again, our deepest gratitude. I had a moment to chat with the governor yesterday about the meeting. He was really excited and made a commitment that in a future conversation council meeting that he would join us, hopefully, once we're past COVID and we can all convene in person and that we don't have to do it online. You all, in advance of this conversation, got the agenda. We will honor what has been made through our public meeting notice. Of course, though, when we select the chair, if there are modifications, I will defer to the chair to make those edits. And so I'm just going to go through very quickly what we have put out to the folk of Louisiana as the guidance for our meeting today. And so the welcome, the roll call, we will vote on a chair and vice chair. And I will serve as the presiding officer, but do something a little unique because I will actually place a name into nomination on behalf of the governor. Also, we will review the legislation, have a conversation about some policies with Dominique Jones-Johnson, have a conversation about our purpose and goals together, begin the conversation about our meeting schedule for 2021. As always, hear from the important voices in our public, and then we will conclude this conversation. We stated that the conversation will be 60 minutes. There's a whole lot that has to take place within that 60 minutes. And so again, once we select the chair, I will defer to the chair if we hold fast to that hard ending. But of course, if your calendar is anything like mine, some of us may have a hard stop. And so we will defer to the chair in terms of how we modify, keep going, or reach out to folk that had to drop off the line early. So with that, not hearing any observations at this point because I haven't really allowed any. Amen, hallelujah, right? Let's defer to Dr. Nagatu on our team in the governor's office to do the roll call. And then I will place a name into nomination for the chair of the council.
Cornelia Hankton. I believe I saw her.
Here.
Renee Carthen.
Here.
Kevin Griffin Clark.
Here.
Robrisha Anderson.
Here.
Dr. Dana Foster.
Here.
Dr. Kelly Peterson.
Here.
Hezekiah Carter.
Here.
William A. Summers. Natalie Laborde.
Here.
Richard Pittman.
Here.
Penny Dossier.
Here.
Shannon Durman, Dominique Jones Johnson,
Here.
Kim Robinson,
Here.
A. Shala Burgess,
I'm here.
Leslie Chambers,
Here.
and Miss Ivy Mathis.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Nagatu. And so I think it's only fitting that I put into nomination the individual that, again, this was her vision, and she worked incredibly hard during the regular 2020 session to make this all happen. I want to put into our space as a nominee for chair, Miss Dominique Jones Johnson. I also want to entertain any other nominees at this point. Hearing that there's only one individual being put into the space for chair of our council, I'm going to ask all in favor say aye.
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 The presiding officer is determining that it's unanimous. And so, congratulations, Miss Dominique Jones Johnson. Again, on behalf of our governor and dare I say the children of our state, thank you for your leadership and your vision in making this possible. We have a full agenda, as I shared before. And so at this point, I'm going to turn the reins over to you to lead the process for selecting the vice chair, and then the flow of the conversation and meeting. I will always join you all to support you. We have other individuals from the governor's office that I just want to acknowledge. Leslie Ricard Chambers is an important attorney in our office, lead on all things justice, as I would say. Maybe is that fair, Ms. Chambers? In our office, criminal justice, but I like justice, right? In our office, and Dr. Tawabish Nagatu, you've heard her voice and you see her face. She will also be supporting this endeavor by memorializing our conversations, and she's the one that will be communicating with you via email and things like that. So with that, Chair Jones Johnson, I turn it over to you.
Okay, is there anyone who would like to open up the nominations for vice chair by nominating someone? Yes.
I nominate Bree Anderson.
Are there any other nominations? If there aren't any other nominations, I'd like to second that nomination for Bree Anderson. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, so we've selected a vice chair. Congratulations, Bree Anderson. We can now move on to the review of the legislation and policies. Does everyone have a copy of the act in front of them?
Yes. Yes.
So just to give you a little bit of background about why we started this, DBI was started in 2018 by my currently incarcerated father, who's on his 38th year of a life sentence at Angola, and myself while I was employed at the public defender's office. It all started because I was asked to speak at Loyola when the governor was speaking. They had a symposium, I think in 2017, and the governor spoke about children impacted by incarceration. I answered a question and ended up on the news. One thing led to another. Loyola asked me to write 10 pages about growing up with an incarcerated parent. And I figured that I had at that time about 35 years worth of pages that I could do. It was the most difficult thing that I've ever had to do. And I was only able to give them 8 pages because it was extremely difficult to relive those moments. And after explaining that situation to my dad, he suggested that we start a program to support children who are impacted by incarceration and what they go through, because not only did reliving those moments help me face my fears, but it also helped me to heal and to be able to provide a testimony to other girls who are going through the same things as I am. And so we started DBI. A little bit about 3 months after we started DBI, his best friend, who was currently incarcerated with him, Robert Jones, was recently exonerated and was also applying to work alongside me at the public defender's office. Because no one talked about how most children that grow up in New Orleans don't like to show their vulnerability, I completely ignored Robert. And there was no way that I wanted to talk to someone who was extremely close to my father and knew more about my father than I did. So initially I had to face my fears and meet Robert and explain to him why I was so afraid to meet him, but I didn't need to because he already understood what I was going through. Robert introduced me to his daughter. His daughter and I immediately clicked, and we formed this beautiful organization that now has 60 plus girls registered in it. The thing that we struggle with, y'all, and I want you to really understand, is that we fail when we don't identify the needs of the children upon enrollment into schools. We allow the schools to tell us this child needs services and provide the child with services instead of asking the child individually upon enrollment. And what we've learned from dealing with our kids is that children like personalization. They like for you to be extremely personal with them and to make them feel like an individual. And so when you ask them upon enrollment, have you experienced parental incarceration? Have you been left without your family or just been neglected? Then they respond to you differently because they know that you're trying to help them heal mentally as well as help them succeed academically. And that's where we failed in Louisiana tremendously. There's no public data that describes the percentage of children that's impacted by incarceration. And so we started this council to do just that, but not just for children in New Orleans, but for all children throughout the state of Louisiana. So the main goal of the council is to establish a resource for all children that are impacted by incarceration throughout the state. We are responsible for creating a report that describes how we're going to do that. And right now, when we're coming together to meet, we need to figure out a plan to do just that. We worked with the Southern Poverty Law Center to create a roadmap. However, the roadmap has to go through so many different channels on Southern Poverty Law Center, and it has not been published yet. As soon as I get it published, I will get a copy to you all so we can all be on the same page. But just to give you guys a background, we're going to serve as a liaison between government and private interest groups on the issue for children of incarcerated parents. We're going to identify and discuss best practices and decide how they best affect children. And the good thing about that is that we have Trinaya, a 15-year-old who's on the board as well. Trinaya is going to communicate with the other girls in our program, and she's going to let them know, or she's going to let us know what we need to discuss and what topics are important to children that are actually growing up with an incarcerated parent. The only struggle with that is that Trinaya and our girls represent New Orleans. So we have to build a coalition of support in Baton Rouge, Shreveport, Lake Charles, and every other city so that we can make sure that all the children's voices are heard. And most importantly, we're going to provide resources to education, to educational staff and caregivers so that we can help them put together a plan of action that would actually help them support all children impacted by incarceration. If you would take some time to look over the act. If you have any questions, I can take questions now. If there are no questions, I'd like for us to move forward with working to identify a mission and maybe discuss our purpose and our goals. So the one thing the council is going to do to kind of help get us started with identifying a mission is ensure that we analyze the systemic barriers faced by children impacted by incarceration and their caregivers as well. The one thing that we want to identify is that we're not just focusing on supporting the children, but when you support children, you have to support their caregivers as well, right? If you see Jamise Van Buren on the call, that is actually Trinaya's mom. So every time we do something with Trinaya, Jamise is always there. And so I have to make sure that I explain what DBI does in the community so that Jamise and Trinaya are on the same page. And when we're thinking about a mission, we want to make sure that the mission covers all that we do. And so when the person reads the mission, they understand exactly what we do. So I like the Louisiana Council for Children of Incarcerated Parents will ensure that systemic barriers faced by children of incarcerated parents or caregivers are identified and discussed how to provide resources and that's not what I have. The Louisiana Council for Children of Incarcerated Parents ensures that all children impacted by incarceration will be supported and resources will be provided to folks that are in contact with all children impacted by incarceration. So it needs a little work. Does anybody else have any suggestions or would like to provide some input?
Do
Is
you
that-
mind repeating
sorry.
that statement again, Dominique? I'd like to write it down to see if I can help support strengthening it some more.
Yeah. The
Ms.
Louisiana
Chambers,
Council
can
for
you put
Children
it
of
in the,
Incarcerated
chat?
Parents will work to ensure that all children impacted by parental incarceration are
Hold on one
supported.
second, Dominique. I'm so sorry. Oh, I just,
Let
Dr.
me put it in the chat, huh?
Yes, and if you don't mind going a little slower for me. I'm ready when you are.
Oh, I was typing it in the chat.
Oh, you chat. Okay, great.
So yeah, it definitely needs to be strengthened.
Okay, I'm going to make a suggestion in the chat, and you all feel free to chime in and give me your inputs.
I would just add that I don't want you to lose what Ms. Jones Johnson had at the end about those that support the children, right? So that can't be lost in, I think, in the mission.
Jawanda, where would you like to see that at? I like that. Identified to be supported with a voice through resources and service delivery statewide.
I'm actually including that language, and I'm not. It doesn't deviate from the substantial language that you have in there, but I do have just a few words to add that may capture exactly what I think you may be looking for in a mission statement. Okay, I just placed my edits in the chat, and let me know what you think, Dominique, and everyone else.
I placed a slight suggestion in the chat as well. Mrs. Jones Johnson made in her initial explanation of the program with regards to initial enrollment in school for the kids, I think she hit the nail on the head when she mentioned emotional and mental health support. And I think that's something we should highlight in the mission statement.
I think that's good too, Renee. Louisiana Council of Children Incarcerated will work to.
I like that addition as well. And it also will be in alignment with the program we're trying to establish statewide for Kinship Navigator, which is supporting kinship caregivers who are raising children that are not their own. So that's one aspect that we're adding to that, the emotional, behavioral, and mental health piece. That's going to be a main component of that program. So that would also is very important.
And so I actually think the emotional, mental, and health support that covers everything holistically. I think that resources be modified by something like appropriate or adequate or effective.
This is Hezekiah Carter here. And, you know, I really think we're all trying to really do great work, but sometimes we kind of make our mission statements and we make them kind of with big words, and especially if we're going to have a youth here involved. Words like, in my head, was motivating and engaging. Just something to really do with not so much a handout, but a hand up type of approach. And just being very mindful of the clients that we're working with, of the people that we're working with. I'm just brainstorming out loud, just trying to give some feedback.
And so I think adding in emotional, mental, and holistic support are provided to those who support them. I think if girls in my program were to look at that, I think that would make them excited. So let's see, what about does everyone see that? And I'm no English major, so my grammar may be off. I know holistically kind of means total and in whole. So if we want to take holistically off and put maybe mentally, emotionally, mentally, physically, or spiritually, we can. And then I think, what did Leslie put? Yeah, resources are available to caregivers, and resources we can put are available to caregivers who care for them. Needs based. Okay. So adding in, Jawanda, you're saying needs based.
Yes, where she mentioned, where she made the suggestion of adequate or sufficient, I think something like needs-based, because it will be specific to that child and that household, what their needs are, if you're making a consideration.
Should we add and caregivers at the top after Louisiana Council for Children of Incarcerated Parents, since that's the title of the council? Yeah.
No, wait, Brie, I'm sorry. The title, the council is Louisiana Council for Children of Incarcerated Parents. And so, Jawanda, you said, I like what you said about the individualized needs and needs-based support. And so where do you suggest we put that in?
Where Leslie mentioned adequate or sufficient, in that area, have it as needs-based, so that is specific to the person in the household.
Did I
Say
include
where to go until you have it mapped out.
I don't think I included that language in that adequate language in my suggestion, but it seems, let's see.
Where it said the resources be modified by something like appropriate or adequate or effective, that's meaning it by.
That was Richard, Jawanda. That was Richard.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So the LCIC will work to ensure all children who are impacted by parental incarceration so
Caregivers, because I'm looking at the legislation and it does include
I know,
caregivers.
I went to go look
It
it up.
does, okay.
Yeah.
That's what they have, I just.
Oh, okay, yeah. Thanks, guys. Mentally, physically, academically, and those caregivers. I feel like it needs to be a little bit more in detail.
Work
To ensure all children who are impacted by parental incarceration be supported mentally, physically, and academically. And those caregivers will be provided with adequate resources to support them. Do we have any other input on it? Okay, so do we want to move that this be our mission? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Dr. Nagatu, are you able to give us a copy?
Although I like the word holistically, but I get it.
I'm sorry, Kim, what'd you say?
No, I like holistically, I just feel like our girls and the people we trying to reach would understand that. But other than that, I like the statement.
Well, I know the girls in my program, they hear it a lot because we use it a lot around here. So it is a common word around here.
Right.
Dr. Nagatu, are you able to give us a hard copy of this?
Sure, I can save the chat and then extract it from there.
Thank you. Okay, we can move on to discuss the purpose and the goals. So we have a report due January 2022. In order to do that report, we have to engage with impacted families and communities and other experts to identify systemic solutions to ensure that Louisiana can reduce the number of children with incarcerated parents and caregivers who are dropping out of school, getting suspended, getting expelled, and becoming incarcerated. And so that's our purpose. We're going to develop a report, and the report will produce the systemic solutions on what we feel is best to support those children. And we have it due January 2022. So I know with everyone else's schedule, we need to kind of establish some dates so that we can kind of figure out a timeline. Do we want to maybe set the schedule for the rest of the year? Dr. Wilson, do you guys normally have council meetings every quarter or once a month, or how does that work?
It depends on the council. We have some councils that meet monthly. We have some councils that meet quarterly. And the thing that I would also add, Chairwoman, is that there's work that can, of course, take place between the council meetings as well. You can establish subcommittees, you can, all those things, right? You reference hearing from voices. You could do a voices subcommittee that you appoint members to that are charged with identifying other folk in different cities and regions to help the goal that you set out earlier. So it's really up to you completely and the council.
Okay, I'm gonna post our purpose in the comments for everyone. guys can let me know how you feel about this, if we want to reword it or change it.
Excuse me. I see it's focusing on reducing the impact of incarceration upon children.
Mhm.
Can it also include reducing the incarceration of parents?
I'm with it. I think that once we at least identify and examine the systemic barriers, then yeah, maybe we figure out a way how we can reduce parental incarceration as a whole. I think it would take a lot of manpower to do that, though. We're up for a big fight with that.
Sure. By the way, I'm Richard Pittman with the Louisiana Public Defender Board, Director of Juvenile Defender Services. Nice to meet everybody.
I remember you. I was Derwin Bunton's assistant.
Oh, okay. All right. You said you worked for the public defenders, but I didn't remember. I didn't remember you from there. But yes, okay. I know Derwin well.
So yeah, once we identify the purpose and the goals, and I guess we can move into maybe some subcommittees like Dr. Wilson suggested.
I think the only question I would have, the purpose and the initial report doesn't really mention the caregivers much at all. So do you want to include some language?
So how do we reframe it to include the caregivers? That's what I think we need to think about. How do we reframe it to include the caregivers? And because I think the biggest issue that our caregivers are faced with is the work hours and not being able to completely interact with the children. So a lot of our parents work multiple jobs or work long hour jobs. I have one parent, she works from 2 in the afternoon to like 12 a.m. midnight. And because of her work hours, she really can't commit to having her children playing in any after school activities or extracurricular activities. And so they're generally just locked inside after school. And when she gets off, you know, she's tired, she goes to sleep. And so there's really no parent interaction, which also can challenge most girls' behavior, depending on their age range and what they're going through in their own social lives. So the biggest issue that we see for caregivers is the work hours, not being able to provide or support the children financially and to be there for the children mentally and emotionally. I mean, one of the ways that DBI combats that is we create the programs for the parents, and some of the programs are virtual. If some of the programs are in person, then we coordinate transportation opportunities, and not just for the child that's enrolled in our program, but for all of the siblings as well. So I guess let's think about some ways that we can include the caregivers and the purpose.
Dominique, I think that it would be great to include something as far as the caregivers, how to be aware or witness those signs to see if a child is straying off into potential behaviors that will lead them to prison. So teach them how to look for those signs that, you know, that usually will lead a child astray.
Okay, thank you for that, Richard. Okay, and so Ivy, we will examine and identify systemic solutions to ensure that Louisiana can reduce the percentage of children with incarcerated parents who are dropping out of school, being expelled from school, and juvenile justice systems. Maybe I like that, Renee, identifying the avenues for caregivers to be more active in reducing their advice. I think it fits well, just right at the end of it too.
I think the statement by Renee encompasses a lot because a lot of our kids are expelled because their parents are unable to attend a lot of the expulsion hearings due to work, lack of notice. And so the expulsions occur just from not the parents' inability to attend, but the necessity that they also have to work. And so a lot of our kids aren't represented at expulsion hearings to have those voices heard or to appeal the allegation towards them. So they just end up in alternative school settings. And I think we also need to figure out a way to mention a revamping of our alternative school settings for our parents and children too.
I like that. So maybe we include that in the report.
Yeah, it's also very intimidating. I've been to a few expulsion hearings as an advocate, and it's almost it really looks like court at the end of the day. So especially here, mainly here in Orleans, probably I've been Orleans and Jefferson, and like I said, it's very intimidating. It looks like court. So that's definitely one of the reasons parents don't show up, or don't, even when they do show up, they don't speak out because they feel like the type of situation is, like I said, it's like it's court.
All right. So I'll write down. How do you pronounce? Is it Aishela? Aishela?
Aishala.
Aishela. I'm sorry, Aishela.
It's okay.
Until you said an alternative to alternative school.
Mm-hmm.
So what about this as a purpose? Okay. If there are no oppositions to this purpose, all in favor for this being the purpose, say aye.
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 Okay, so since we know we have a report due in January 2022, would anybody be opposed to meeting once a month, maybe around this time? I think the only month that would affect us is July 4th. So if there are no oppositions, I'd like to move that we have monthly meetings on the 4th at 10 a.m.
Or maybe Dominique, since we're meeting on a Thursday for the first time, is your goal to meet the first Thursday of every month?
Okay. Thank you, Leslie. Dr. Wilson, what committees do you suggest that we implement or that we start?
Yeah, so just hearing the conversation, right? And let me also apologize. I have a big voice, and sometimes my team says you need to listen more than get out ahead of everyone. So I apologize. This is your council, but my thoughts, Madam Chairwoman, would be you've already referenced that you want a youth voices committee, right? You want to really be intentional about making this a statewide effort, not just a New Orleans centric effort. We've heard that we need some intentionality around the caregivers because the needs of the caregivers, right, will be different from the needs of the children, right? And so I would say that the next one is a bit abstract because when I first got notice about this council, I got really excited because my first thought was these children are invisible, right? And so what you have to do in the public policy space is start to create a narrative about who these children are and who their caregivers are. And so I don't know how to like make this like sound nice and neat for a committee, but how many of these children exist in our state? Are they cared for primarily by kin, or is it like the next door neighbor that just stepped up and is deciding to care for these children? What is the benefit in terms of if we transform outcomes for these children in terms of the public good, right? For them and for community, right? And so I just think you also need a committee, a data committee. I don't know, like a narrative data / something that
like
you
a
have
research
a team
committee.
of folk. Yeah, you have a team of folk really being intentional about like saying who these folk are, right? So that in your report you can lead with that, and then you also can start to engage media across the state around that narrative of these children that we don't see, right? But the impact we can have in transforming them and our state if we do right by them and right by their caregivers, right? And so those are just my initial thoughts. My apologies for dominating.
It's okay, thank you. So why don't we, because I see we're pressed for time and I want to try to make some take some public comments. Why don't we all come back with at least 2 people that we'd like to nominate for the youth committee, the caregivers committee, and the research committee. And that's something that we can possibly do by email, and we'll have it ready for the next meeting.
And you probably want it, Madam Chair, you probably want it anchored, right? If you want to have from actually members of the council, right? If they want to serve as, and maybe that's what you're asking. I misinterpreted what you were saying. Like if they wanted to serve as chair of the youth voices, and maybe I just misunderstood what you were saying.
For the youth voices, is it possible for us to nominate children from different parts of the city to be on it, instead of just have children from New Orleans on it?
Different parts of the state.
Yeah, it's the completely up to you, right? Yep.
So that's what I mean. If you guys are working with children in whatever part of the state you're in, I'm sorry, let's nominate those children. If they're impacted by parental incarceration, let's nominate those children, get them involved. If you know children who would be interested in doing this, let's get their voices heard, as well as caregivers, and then we'll nominate someone from our council to lead those committees. All right, Dr. Wilson, how do we open it up for public comments?
We will defer to Dr. Nagatu first. Let's ask her if we have anyone in the queue that are participating in the public section. That's the first question. And then if there are members, then she can open it and then you can ask them for comment.
Okay.
I have a couple members who have joined via Zoom, but no questions in the chat.
So maybe this is the point to ask those that are in the public space if they want to um, add questions, observations now, and then Madam Chair, we can get those read to you via Dr. Nagatu for reaction.
Great. Great. Let's do that. Is there anyone in the public who would like to make any comments or observations or have any questions?
Dr. Nagato, are you seeing any reaction? Okay, so I don't think there's any reaction. What we will also do, Madam Chair, is for your future meetings, we will do even more robust outreach to make sure that we get attendance. That will also help facilitate the organizing in the regions around this effort as well.
I think so too. I appreciate it.
And then what we will also do is that I don't know if I can do it for next month, but when we pull the governor in, we'll make it a part of his public schedule. And so therefore, it will go statewide in all the media markets, his remarks to the group. And that way we will also help you build visibility, okay?
Thank you. If there are no other comments or concerns, we'd like to.
I have a question, Dominique. I don't know if this is appropriate for this meeting, but in the school system, do they have liaisons for children, with incarcerated parents? Because there's a barrier there, and a lot of kids don't say or speak on it. So is there where someone could be in that space in the schools to identify some of those kids?
I think I'd like to refer that question to Dr. Peterson. She's here on behalf of the school Department of Education.
Oh, okay, Dr. Peterson. Nice to meet you. I don't see her, but hi.
Dr. Peterson? Maybe she stepped away. To my knowledge, based on the children who we work with here, there is not a liaison. And that's one of the goals of the council as well.
Okay. Because that's something that I think coming from that space, I know I was one of those kids, 40, 50 years ago. I was in parochial school, but the principal knew, the nuns knew, but no one else knew. So I kind of got not preferential treatment, but I kind of did because, I was ashamed. So again, that's another thing. A lot of kids don't say that their parent, is incarcerated. So getting that data, that's a problem. I know a lot of kids, unless you ask or they know someone, they don't know that because they won't say.
I agree. If there are
this is Jawanda.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is Jawanda. In regards to what Kim just asked and what Dr. Wilson mentioned about data. So as we're working with the on the collecting the data surrounding kinship caregivers and the type of caregiver they are, whether they're formal or informal, children in state custody or just with the relative.
We can barely hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I said I will add that as a question to some of the data that we're collecting for our surrounding kinship caregivers about whether the caregiver is caring for a child of an incarcerated parent. So just that, because that's some information that's good data to have as well as a part of what our report will be working on.
I appreciate that, Jawanda. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I would like to apologize to the group. When we did the roll call earlier, we did not share departments or titles or anything like that. We have such great richness right in this group. from the leader of our juvenile justice system to representative from education to grassroots leaders that are making a difference every day. And so, so I will defer to you in the next meeting how we make sure, right, that a sense of who is on the line is captured as well. But my apologies to the group because that was a part of my piece. So
That's not a problem. I mean, also I don't see Mr. William Summers' name on the
Here.
member list.
He's here.
Right, I didn't see his name on the member list, so that's why I was saying when I saw him pop up, I didn't.
I think Dr. Nagatu called his name. Did you not call his name?
You did? Okay, all right.
So Madam Chair, we will also just make sure, right, that we have the most up-to-date membership list and get that out to you. And with your permission, share it with everyone on the council.
Thank you. You have my permission. All right, if there are no other comments, we'd like to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It was a pleasure meeting with you guys, and I extremely appreciate it. I'm so thankful, and I'm so excited to work with all of you.
Thank
Enjoy
you,
the rest
Madam
of your
Chair.
day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.